Hello and welcome. In this brief tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how to do a simple life cycle assessment of a structural model and architectural model. And I'm going to do this by demonstrating tallyLCA, which is a plugin to Revit. So tallyLCA is offered by Building Transparency, and it comes in as a plugin to Revit, and it allows design teams to assess um, the environmental impact categories that come standard with a ISO compliant lifecycle assessment. And this is going to give you a level of analysis that's going to be appropriate and compliant for LEED and ILFI zero carbon. And I'm going to demonstrate using this model that you see here. So this is what you see on the screen is the structural model for, it's a university theater project. And so you can see the um, main structural components visible here. And after you've downloaded Tally and you've installed it, it should come into Revit as an add-in. So you go to the add-in menu up top on the ribbon menu, and you'll see this button here, Tally. It as characteristic of any other tool, it'll bring in a drop-down, which is the solo Tally button here. So go ahead and click that button, and you're going to see the splash screen. It's going to generate, and you're going to see this window here. And you can hit type for the type of study that you want to complete. And if you are working on a LEED project, for instance, where you want to look at your structure and building enclosure, and with LEED v5, you'll need to separately also assess your landscape hardscape. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to show you structure and building enclosure. So I'm going to pick full building study. So click this, and it's going to ask me to identify what what portion of the Revit model would I want to import to assign materiality to. And so you can do this by category, you can do it by work sets, phases, etc. And because this is a structural model, and I know with this particular model, there's not we just don't have multiple phases to it or anything. I'm just going to pick everything and everything, and that's going to allow me to import all of the elements of this BIM model into Tally. So you can see here it's loading it up. Now, I prepared for this video, so I already went through and assigned some materials to make sure that I would have a smooth demonstration here. So I imported this model. It brings in by, you can see here this broad category by which it will catalog the different elements that you imported. So this is everything in this structural model. Everything that we assigned, and you saw I clicked everything. So this brought in every single component of that BIM model. I'm going to go over here to the right where it says display. You can specify for yourself if you want metric or imperial. I'm going to go ahead and go with my IP units. And I'm just going to kind of reverse engineer maybe one or two of these so you can see how it works. So floors, concrete slab. Let's look at this 8-inch one here. I do the drop down, and the name of this material that's assigned to this component is based on what was ever assigned in your BIM model. So this will suggest that good best practices with modeling will really pay dividends here. But you can select this, and for any material, you would want to right click and hit edit definition, and it's going to allow you to, by the CSI categories here, pick whatever this particular component in the Revit model is comprised of. So in our case, we did have it specified as, there's the name of that element, concrete slab 8-inch. We noted it as cast in place concrete. And here it's going to give you some other takeoff information about that piece in the model. In fact, if you see this and you're wondering what precisely is this in the model, I can show you that here in a second. So to finish my selection, I'm going to drop down to cast in place concrete, get a number of other selections. Now we have cast in place for lightweight structural, for just sort of typical structural by different PSIs. I'm going to go with this 4,000. I already worked with my structural engineer and determined that this was the appropriate selection for this particular component, but you're going to apply. It's going to bring in this additional menu box. And this is going to be where you can specify maybe a proportionality of fly ash. Now, if you're doing this for lead or LFI zero carbon, etc., you probably want to have two versions of this analysis. One would be your baseline condition, the other one would be your proposed condition. But as it were here, I'm just going to do one single run. And we don't know yet with this project what we're going to have. So we, by default, just picked the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Average, which is most appropriate based on the location of our project. And then you're going to have the ability to either go with the default building life, or you can manually specify what the surface life of this particular component would be. And in Tally, it's typically going to give you one or maybe a short list of takeoff methods. And you walk through this wizard, and sometimes you can use overrides, but a lot of times you can just pick defaults or pick within a short list of potential selection items. So this is for my concrete type. I can also go into my reinforcement, pick from a number of different reinforcement types. Again, I talked with my structural engineer. I know that I have welded wire mesh in this case. I know that it's 6x6 and it's 10 gauge. And so all this has been worked out, and I hit save. And anything else that looks identical in terms of its materiality in the Revit model for that type of element in the model, it will then pull up and say, hey, we saw that you assigned this to a particular element of your BIM model, and we think it might apply to these others. And you can actually go in and make your life much easier and select which other components of the BIM model your specification that you just did may apply to. And if it applies to nothing, you can hit skip. And so you're going to go through and do this for every single component of your BIM model. So you might have something here like a roof deck, and go into this, edit information, add a steel deck, and apply. Here it's like galvanized steel decking, and you can see here 18 gauge and 76 millimeters. Fireproofing, we had none. Finishes, we had none in this particular case. You save that. You could apply it to others here if you wish. Skip. Okay, so before I get out of this menu, I want to note a couple other quick things. One is these green dots that by now you've definitely noticed. They're not all green. If I were to scroll down, you're going to find, like this one here, something that might actually be grayed out. When you import your Revit model into Tally initially, you're going to have gray for everything. I'm sorry, you're going to have red for everything. It's going to note that you don't have anything identified associated with the Tally materials database yet. And you will go through and actually start to assign the materials to everything. And once you are done with that, you'll get green. So what the objective is, you want to essentially either ignore some materials. So you see here, we actually took this material, and due to some specifics of the project, we wanted to just ignore this piece. So we set that as a dummy material. That made it gray. That means it's sort of inconsequential. It's not going to count. If there's something that's incomplete, you may get a yellow for caution. And again, if red, that means that there's an issue that needs to be addressed. But generally speaking, you're going to have an exercise here in trying to turn all of these green. So as you go through, and frankly, you can hit go on the analysis anytime you want. So if something is yellow or if it's all grayed out because nothing's been assigned to it, it is sort of a work in progress, and you can sometimes, when you're going through this exercise, maybe not have all the information. Something's not entirely complete, but this is just letting you know, hey, if there's an issue or not. So you can use this as a bit of a guide. Okay, so also, you might go through this exercise and you're trying to figure out, like, okay, I've got this wall. What was this 8-inch concrete wall? I don't recall what this is. You can actually right click, isolate, view in Revit. I'll pull this down here. You can actually see it will do a temporary visualization and actually let you know what that is in the model. And you don't have to worry about resetting that because you might do this several times. You might look through here and say, oh, this wide flange. Okay, let's isolate that in Revit view and hit that. And it will also do another temporary view. So you don't need to worry about resetting it each time. But once you are finished and everything is either appropriately got this dark gray or maybe uh, preferably either gray or green across the board here, you are pretty much ready to go. So in this case here, all green is good. I am ready to actually do my analysis. I'm going to hit save report, and it's going to bring up this report details menu where I can acknowledge the company name, project, which it'll pull from the project information in your Revit model. You will need to write something down here for goal and scope of assessment. A good best practice is to be descriptive here, but in my case, I'm just going to say lead v4.1 compliant scope. And that's just placeholder information right now for this demo. You can note if you want to include biogenic carbon or not. You can also add construction embodied carbon impacts and such. So you can actually include your construction impacts. And you do this by way of adding electricity, heating, and water use. And you can specify the units and the source for that. And you can also do this for operational energy impacts. And this has to do with your building being operated. If you want to put that in here, I will give you a word of caution. I have done this before, and over the course of, let's say, a 60-year expected building life, it's going to run an analysis for the years that you specify. And over the long arc of time, the operational energy uh, will be much, much larger than your embodied, especially over the course of 60 years. So I would say if you are just doing an embodied carbon assessment, or you're just looking uh, at the standard short list of environmental impact categories, I would just not mess with the operational impacts. Uh, in the industry, there are emerging methodologies on how to calculate this, but a lead project, for example, won't require you to include construction impacts. I'm not going to select that yet. Output summaries, notice the bill of materials, contribution assessments in PDF form. You can specify all this. You could even export to the EC3 tool, but no, that's in beta form. But I think based on what I have here, we're ready to go. So I'll hit save, and it will actually, if I were to hit save, it would start to do its own isolated analysis for the structure model. I am actually going to not save. If I hit save, it's going to execute the report. I'm going to wait and do this by linking to my architectural model so I can do it all in one shot. So I'm going to close this out. When you close it out, all the inputs we put in Tally are retained in the model. So I'm going to close this out. I'm actually going to go here and reset my temporary views at this point, and I am going to save my model. And let's go ahead and override. Yes. Okay. So it's saving that model. Then I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to open the architectural model. If I were to execute the analysis that was going to duplicate some work I'm going to demonstrate here in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to close out my structural model. And now what you see is the architectural model. And I want to, you can't have a linked model open. So now that I have the structural model closed, I'm going to go to manage. I'm going to manage my links, and I'm going to make sure that I have my structural model linked in. So it is now going to be linked into my architectural model. I should get the green dot, or I guess in this case, blue check dot here. So that's good. The check confirms that it's good. Okay, so now I've got my structural model linked into this, but I'm going to go through and do the same demonstration with Tally and my architectural model, and it's going to load it up. I will do the same thing as I did before. Hit full building study. Notice a more expansive list. For one, I'm going to pick, here's that structural model, read only. You cannot edit the materiality of this linked model. That's why I just demonstrated these loading in the information into the structural model separately, because you cannot do it within the architectural model. You cannot edit the linked models. But you can link the linked models, import that information, pull it into your overall assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and check that off. And for my architectural model here, I'm going to select all categories. Now, the way that this model is developed, I do want to pick everything. Phasing and such is of no consequence based on how this model was built. I want to make sure I capture everything in case something wasn't noted correctly down here. But something that we did do very, very carefully is on our work sets, we only want to use our building enclosure work set. This is a best practice that my team uses when we do our Revit work and we want to import just the building enclosure. We will make sure to have a work set that is dedicated just to the building enclosure, so that when we get to this point in a tally analysis, we can simply select all, unselect the work sets, and just pick building enclosure, and it's got everything. Now, I suppose a project with several different phases and demo issues and such, I may have to be more careful, but because this is a new construction project with only one phase, I could just click the easy button by just selecting all and then backing out my work set selection such that I could just pick building enclosure. So sounds like a word salad. I hope this makes sense. I basically have imported my linked structural model, and I wanted to isolate and import only my building enclosure work set from the architectural model. I'll hit apply, and it's now importing all that. And you can see here from our imported structural model, everything is green just as before. I can look at it all. So if I drop this down, this should look familiar from a few minutes ago. Everything that was green before or gray before is the same. But notice the little padlock icon, just telling you once more that you cannot edit this linked information. Now, on the architectural side, I also, again, in preparation of this video, wanted to make sure it worked smoothly, so I went in and checked everything. But in the case here, you may have, you see by these different broad categories: ceilings, curtain wall, mullions and panels, doors, roofs, structural columns and walls. And these are structural columns that are not in the structural model. There are a few of them, and we do have those noted, but in the case here, we have these, well, you can see here the materiality: ceilings, metal soffit on 2.5-inch resilient channels, gypsum sheathing, and suspended metal ceiling grid. So that's based on what this particular component was. This is part of a sort of an integral component, because a lot of times your ceilings would not be a part of your building enclosure import and analysis. In the case here, this is just semantics about how certain components of the model were actually identified. So don't read too much into that. But it has to do with just certain exterior components of an overhang, specifically this over here. So a ceiling per se was part of this exterior enclosure assembly. By the way, once again, every time you open up Tally, it's going to default to metric. Go select your IP units if you want to. Then you can look at something like wall. This had a lot of precast. If I go back over to here, a lot of precast panels on this project. So I'm going to go up here and this PC, precast concrete, you can come in here, edit definition. We had information as noted. You can pick, again, this should look familiar based on the cast in place menu. So a lot of similar organization of information. You could pick something like, let's look for something else here. I'll cancel out of this. Let's get out of the precast. Let's look at some glazing, shall we? That's going to make things a little different for this demo. So I've got my mullions, I've got my panels. Go to panels, and we had 1-inch glass, and we noted this, we noted this as it's actually an insulated glass unit, a double paned insulated glass unit. So I'm going to edit definition, and here are my CSI master format divisions again. And you can get down to division 8 glass. And notice that has double pane, electrochromic, monolithic, triple pane. And you could also make a custom insulated glass unit. So I am going to pick that double pane IGU. You can see this information here. I could pick, I mean, it's a pretty standard selection. This is grayed out. What's the service year, the takeoff, fixed value, etc. Things get more interesting if you were to pick custom insulated glass unit. You could pick this, and here you could really start to layer up coatings, glass types, connections, what type of fill do you have, how many layers do you have. I mean, this really allows you to customize your units and get very specific. But in our case, we've got just a double pane glazing unit here. And so I think you get the picture. You want to drive toward as many green dots as you can for this model too. And as it is here, we are ready to go. So I can hit save report. And again, put your company name if you want. It's going to remind you of the information regarding gross building area, expected building life, everything that we saw before. I'll say, once again, lead v 4.1. Compliant scope, just as something generic. We'll go ahead and select biogenic carbon, though it makes really very, very, very little impact on this particular project. And now I'm ready to go. I'll hit save. Oh, wait, what I mess up? Oh, you got to put in a company name too. So I'll just put in company name, hit save, and let's say test run. And let's see what we get here. Now, this is something that it'll make you think you broke your computer here for a second, but bear with me. I specified both the Excel bill of materials as well as the PDF, and we're just going to let Tally do its thing here for a few seconds. It is running a very rigorous, very robust analysis, as you can see. If a coworker walks by, they're going to think you have entered the matrix, or you are very productive, or you broke your computer. I don't know. But this will just take about 20 seconds, and it will be ready to go. Okay, so it's got information in here, a little summary tab, Revit model tab. Look here, we've got architectural, structural, and notice here, these are the different standard environmental impact categories. You'll oftentimes report most, if not all of these for your green building certification efforts. But if you are looking specifically for embodied carbon, that would be right here. Sum of global warming potential total in kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And it's giving you the total for the architectural model and the structural model as a grand total here. And if I were to go back into that model and add on the save report, you saw that 16,697. If I were to look at converting that, let's see here. I would just quickly convert square feet to meters squared. I'll do it off camera here just for a second. Let me grab this number, and that would be 1,551 square meters. Why do I want to do that? Because over back here to our Excel, I want to look for my kilograms of CO2 equivalent, maybe per square meter. I can put my square meters here, and I could simply do a quick equation. I'm just doing it for my own little check here. I want to see what we would have. So what I just did was oops, let me just try it one more time. Take this, divide by this. Yeah, I did that right. Okay, so you can see we got a lot of concrete. You saw the cast in place, you saw the precast. And so this number does not surprise me. For my structure and enclosure combined, I am getting just over 1,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per square meter. So that's what this number right here is telling me. I just did that as a quick informal takeoff. You could dig deeper into this Excel. You can look at life cycle stage, and you can see for the different life cycle stages what your environmental impacts are, including carbon. You can go by stage division. This is really useful if your numbers are high. Like even 1,000 for me is a bit high. I could look through this list and see, okay, yeah, a lot of that comes from concrete. Ooh, I get a lot of it comes from division 7, thermal and moisture protection. There's a really big number there too. And I could really start to scrutinize this and try to figure out if there are any outliers, anything that looks very much like it's jumping off the page at me as being extremely huge and maybe not correct. So this is kind of like what you would do looking at energy modeling results or a cost estimate. You just want to go through and a little bit of review just to make sure that everything is as it seemingly should be in terms of magnitudes based on the specifics of your projects. So you can again go by stage category, divisions, and there's a lot of good information here. What I'm going to do is show you one more thing, which is there was a PDF that popped up initially, and that is right here. It's a 27-page PDF, and this is where a lot of really compelling visuals will be. And as I scroll down here, Tally just generates this standard report and will give you information that can help you, again, audit your project, understand how it's performing. So this first one here, this is results per life cycle stage. It's giving you those environmental impact categories. You can see that it's mostly in the product stage. In this particular case, results per life cycle stage itemized by the CSI divisions. Again, some interesting information. Results per division. Gives you some good info here. That does not surprise me. There's my concrete. So maybe division 7, something I want to look more closely at and see if I can figure out what's leading to that high of a number. Metals, I know I had a lot of metals for my curtain wall system. So results per division, itemized by tally entry. So here we can start to see that high proportionality. So here I can see perhaps it's my extruded polystyrene, glass fiber reinforced concrete, metal panel. I'd have to scrutinize this further and see, specifically the associations here, but I think I'm starting to see a few of the culprits. Warrants deeper investigation for sure. Results per division itemized by material. So you can see here some really great insights through this report. And per Revit category, and start to see that. So again, I won't take up more time in the video running through all of this, but this does offer some really great insights. And between this and between really this information here is what you're going to want to use to report to your, let's say if you're doing a lead project, this is what you put in the credit template, some of this summary information specifically. Go back to your Revit model, these complete summaries here or these grand totals that are offered. So this is it. So you just went through a basic tally analysis to determine the environmental impacts and specifically the embodied carbon for a structural model and an architectural model combined. And I even showed you how to come up with an embodied carbon value of kilograms of CO2 equivalent per square meter. And I hope this tutorial was helpful and clarifying and made Tally more accessible. And happy modeling.